Can listening to the Shiva Purana actually purify sins and negative karma? According to Hindu scriptures, the answer is yes, but not magically. The Shiva Purana is one of the 18 Mahapuranas, and it was never meant to be read like an ordinary book. It was meant to be listened to, reflected on, and lived. That is why the tradition emphasizes Sravanam, listening, and Pathanam, conscious reading. The Shiva Purana is divided into 7 samhitas, each explaining who Shiva truly is, how life works, and how liberation is possible while living. There is no fixed chapter count because Puranas were oral traditions first, written later. Its core teaching is tattva, eternal truth. Intent matters more than ritual. Ego creates bondage. Grace matters more than qualification. And moksha is possible here and now. So how does it purify karma? By transforming the mind. Repeated listening weakens lust, anger, greed, fear, and guilt, the real causes of suffering. That is why the lives of the 63 Nayanars matter. Hunters, kings, women, scholars, all equal in devotion. They didn't explain the Shiva Purana, they lived it. The Shiva Purana doesn't promise miracles, it promises clarity. What if God came to you as someone society taught you to ignore? Would you still recognize him? This is the powerful story of Somasi Nayanar. Somasi Nayanar was born into a respected Brahmin family. In those days, caste rules were very strict, and people believed purity depended on birth. But Somasi believed something very different. He believed that anyone who truly loves Lord Shiva is greater than social status, so he served every devotee of Shiva. He bowed before all of them, rich or poor, high caste or low caste. People questioned him. Some criticized him, but he never argued. His devotion was quiet. His humility was real. Somasi also believed deeply in one simple mantra, Na, Ma, Shi, Va, Ya. He said this mantra is enough to clean the mind and remove ego if chanted with a pure heart. Later, Somasi decided to perform a Soma Yajna, a sacred ritual for Lord Shiva. He believed the ritual would be complete only if true devotees were honored. At that time, the great saint Sundarar was suffering from a severe cough. Somasi did not ask him for blessings. He did not seek recognition. He quietly served him, sending medicinal 𝐻𝐈𝐕𝐄𝐃 leaves to help him recover. Then came the moment of truth. During the ritual, Lord Shiva appeared, not as a king, not as a god. He came as a poor outcast man. The scholars present were shocked. They panicked. They believed that his presence would pollute the ritual, that touching him would destroy their merit, that accepting him would break social rules. They were not afraid of God. They were afraid of losing status. So they ran away. But Somasi did not move. He looked at the visitor once and recognized Shiva beyond the form. Without hesitation, with folded hands, he offered the sacred food. At that moment, Shiva revealed himself. The lesson was clear. Shiva did not test ritual knowledge, he tested humility. Somasi Nayanar teaches us one simple truth. Rules without compassion create fear. Devotion with humility reveals God. Remember this, God does not ask who you are, he asks how pure your heart is. Namah Shivaya. What if I told you a man reached moksha without praying to Shiva directly? No rituals, no miracles asked, only love for one devotee. Sounds impossible? Listen carefully. This is the story of Apputhi Adigal. Apputhi Adigal was born in Thingalur, a quiet village in Tamil Nadu. He was not a king, not a scholar, not a famous saint. He lived a simple life with his family, earning honestly, serving people. But his heart was completely devoted to one great Shiva Bhakta, Thirunavarasar, known to the world as Appar. Here is the most surprising truth. Apputhi had never even met Appar, yet he believed something very deeply. Serving a true devotee of Shiva is the highest form of devotion. So Apputhi did something no one could understand. He named his children after Appar. He named his cows after Appar. Even his household vessels carried Appar's name. The public watersheds he built for travelers were also named after Appar. People laughed at him. Some mocked him, but Apputhi never changed. One day, Appar finally arrived in Thangalore. Apputhi welcomed him with tears of joy and began preparing food with devotion. While cutting a banana leaf for the meal, a cobra suddenly bit Apputhi's elder son. The boy died instantly. In that moment, any parent would scream. Any heart would break. But Apputhi and his wife made a decision that still shakes the soul. They hid their son's body. They did not disturb their guest. They continued serving the meal calmly. Why? Because they believed a devotee's peace must never be disturbed. Appar sensed something was wrong. When he asked about the child, the truth was revealed. Deeply moved, Appar went to the Shiva temple and sang a sacred Devaram hymn called Andru Kolam. By Shiva's grace, the child came back to life. Apputhi Adigal proved a truth that Shaivism has always taught. Shiva and his devotees are never separate. Even today, Apputhi Adigal is remembered during the Tamil month of Thai on the Sathayam star. Among the 63 Nayanars, he stands with folded hands, teaching a lesson for all humanity. You don't need grand rituals. You don't need loud prayers. Serve good people sincerely. Respect true devotees. That is real devotion. What if the greatest act of power is knowing exactly when to walk away from it? Aiyadigal Kadavarkon was a Pallava king and one of the 63 Nayanars, celebrated not for wars or expansion, but for redefining what righteous governance truly means. He ruled his kingdom with what Shaiva texts describe as the scepter of Dharma. His leadership prioritized justice, peace, and spiritual welfare over political ambition. Under his rule, law prevailed, society remained stable, and ethical order dominated a time symbolically associated with the moral decline of Kali Yuga. Unlike many rulers, his success did not inflate ego. It triggered clarity. Once justice was firmly established and succession was secure, Aiyadigal Kadavarkon realized that continuing to rule was no longer service. It had become attachment. In Shaivism, even righteous authority turns into bondage when held beyond its purpose. He viewed the crown not as glory, but as a burden and a hurdle to complete devotion. Then came the defining moment. Without rebellion, crisis, or pressure, he voluntarily abdicated the throne, crowned his son, and walked away from royal life. He chose the path of a wandering Shaiva pilgrim, traveling across sacred temples of Tamil land. At each shrine he visited, he composed a Venpa hymn, transforming governance into poetry and rule into remembrance. These verses were later compiled as the Kshetra Tiru Vendadi, now preserved in the 11th Tirumarai, including hymns dedicated to the sacred temple of Chidambaram. Iyadigal Kadavarkon's life delivers a timeless lesson. True leadership is not measured by how long power is held, but by the wisdom to relinquish it when Dharma is fulfilled. That is why history remembers him not merely as a Pallava king, but as a Nayanar. Har Har Mahadev. What if one missing cloth weighed more than gold, diamonds, and your entire life? This is not mythology. This is Shiva testing integrity. This is the true story of Amarneethi Nayanar. Amarneethi Nayanar lived in Pashayarai, Tamil Nadu. He was a successful cloth merchant, but more than business, he was a devoted follower of Lord Shiva. He lived by one strict vow. Any cloth given to him in Shiva's name must be returned exactly as it was. If it was lost, even by mistake, he would take full responsibility. One day, a young brahmachari came to his house. Before bathing in the Kaveri River, he handed over a simple loincloth and said, "Please keep this safe." Amarneethi accepted it with respect. When the brahmachari returned, the cloth was missing. Amarneethi searched everywhere, but it could not be found. He was deeply troubled, not because of money, but because his vow was broken. He begged the brahmachari for forgiveness. He offered new cloth, gold, silks, and all his wealth. But the brahmachari refused. He said, "I want the same cloth or another cloth of equal weight." A balance scale was brought. The brahmachari placed his wet loincloth on one side. Amarneethi placed new cloth and all his riches on the other side. Still, the scale did not balance. Then Amarneethi understood. This was not an ordinary test. This was Lord Shiva testing his truthfulness. He prayed to Shiva and chanted, "Namah Shivaya," With the brahmachari's permission, he placed himself, his wife, and his child on the scale. At once, the scale balanced. The brahmachari revealed himself as Lord Shiva, with goddess Parvati beside him. Shiva blessed Amarneethi and said, "Your honesty and devotion are your true wealth." The scale turned into a divine chariot, and Amarneethi and his family were taken to Kailash. This story teaches us one clear truth. Money can be replaced, but honesty and integrity cannot. A life lived with truth leads to liberation. Har Har Mahadev. What if I told you God does not look at perfect rules? He looks at the heart behind the action. This is the true story of Tirunilakantha Nayanar, one of the 63 Nayanars. He was born in Sadamangai in present-day Tamil Nadu. A deeply disciplined Brahmin, he believed devotion meant strict rules, exact rituals, and perfect purity. Every day, he and his wife worshipped Shiva at home, performing daily puja to the Shiva Linga in their own shrine. One day, while they were praying, a spider suddenly fell onto the linga. Tirunilakantha Nayanar's wife saw a spider on the Shiva Linga, but to her, it was not a stone, not a symbol. In her heart, it was Shiva himself who needed protection. She didn't think. She didn't calculate rules. Out of fear and deep care, she blew the spider away to save Shiva from harm. Her breath carried saliva, not impurity, but care and love, to cool the poison and protect Shiva. But Neelanakka saw only the act, not the intention behind it. To him, saliva touching the linga was a serious sin. Blinded by rigid belief and spiritual pride, he judged his wife harshly and walked away from her, thinking he had protected God. That night, Lord Shiva appeared in Neelanakka's dream. Shiva's divine body was covered with painful blisters, except for one single place. Shiva spoke and said, "The spider was poisonous. Its venom caused this pain. The place without pain is where your wife blew. What you saw as impurity," Shiva said, "I saw as love. She acted to protect me. I value that more than flawless ritual." Neelanakka woke up shaken. He understood his mistake. He returned to his wife, fell at her feet, and begged for forgiveness. From that day onward, he let go of pride and served all Shiva devotees with humility and compassion. A temple still stands in Sadamangai today in his honor, remembering a man who learned this eternal truth. Shiva is not moved by perfection. Shiva is moved by intention. True devotion is not about rules alone. It is about love. Har Har Mahadev. Shiva asked his wife, and he didn't reject. What if God asked you for everything? Not money, not gold, but the one thing you believe is truly yours. This is the story of a man who let go without fear. Eyarpagai Nayanar was a rich and powerful chieftain. He had land, wealth, respect, and family. Yet he lived by one unbreakable rule. He would never refuse a devotee of Lord Shiva. If a Shiva devotee asked for food, he gave food. If they asked for shelter, he gave shelter. If they asked for wealth, he gave without counting. Eyarpagai believed one simple truth. Nothing in this world truly belongs to us. Everything belongs to Shiva. That is why people called him Eyarpagai, a man who lived against normal human nature. One day, Lord Shiva decided to test him. Shiva came in disguise as an old, unpleasant-looking Shiva devotee. Then came a request that shocked everyone. The devotee asked Eyarpagai to give him his wife. Eyarpagai did not argue. He did not ask questions. He did not hesitate. He believed, if everything belongs to Shiva, how can I say this is mine? His wife, a true devotee herself, accepted this decision calmly, trusting Shiva completely. When Eyarpagai's relatives heard about this, they became furious. They attacked the old devotee, claiming they were protecting family honor and morality. Eyarpagai stood in front of them. To protect his promise to Shiva, he even fought his own people. For him, keeping his vow to Shiva was greater than fear, pride, or family ties. At that moment, the old devotee revealed his true form. He was Lord Shiva. Shiva blessed Eyarpagai and his wife for their absolute devotion and surrender. Eyarpagai and his wife attained liberation. Even those who lost their lives in the conflict were blessed by Shiva. This story teaches us one powerful truth. True devotion is not about rituals alone. It is about complete trust, letting go of ego, letting go of ownership, and believing that Shiva knows what is best. Har Har Mahadev. What if honoring a devotee meant choosing death, not mercy, not weakness, but truth above life itself? This is not mythology. This is the life of Meiporul Nayanar. Meiporul Nayanar was the warrior king of Miladu Nadu, a ruler known for victory in battle and justice in governance. Yet, above power, above politics, he lived by one unbreakable principle. Any bearer of Lord Shiva's sacred ash must be honored without question. To him, the symbols of Shiva were not external signs. They were Shiva himself. A rival king named Muthanathan, defeated again and again on the battlefield, abandoned war and chose deceit. He shaved his head, smeared vibhuti across his body, wore the robes of a Saiva ascetic, and carried palm leaf manuscripts, claiming them to be sacred scriptures. Disguised as a devotee, he walked straight into Meiporul Nayanar's palace because the king's law demanded reverence, not suspicion. Meiporul Nayanar welcomed him with humility. He dismissed his guards. He asked his queen to leave. He bowed deeply, believing he stood before a true servant of Shiva, prepared to receive divine teachings. As Meiporul Nayanar bowed in reverence, lowering his head in surrender, the ascetic's hand moved, not in blessing, but in betrayal. From beneath the robes, a concealed dagger flashed. It struck the king's body, tearing flesh and breath in a single moment. Blood spilled onto the palace floor, and the silence of devotion shattered. The royal guardian Dathan rushed in, sword raised, ready to deliver justice. The traitor stood exposed. Death was certain, but the dying king lifted his trembling hand and stopped him. With his final strength, Meiporul Nayanar said, "Do not harm him. He bears the marks of Shiva. He is one among us." He commanded Dathan to escort Muthanathan safely beyond the borders of the kingdom, ensuring no harm would come to him. Dharma was upheld, even as life faded. Only after Dathan returned and confirmed the assassin's safety did Meiporul Nayanar close his eyes, his mind fixed entirely on Lord Shiva. In that sacred moment, Shiva himself appeared, not to save the body, but to claim the soul. Meiporul Nayanar was granted liberation and taken to Shiva Loka. This is not forgiveness. This is not kindness. This is absolute devotion. Truth was upheld. Life was surrendered. Liberation was earned. This is Meiporul Nayanar. This is Shaivism. This is truth above life. What would you do if your faith was questioned by your own family? Can devotion become so strong that even family ties become secondary? This is the story of Chandesha Nayanar, a story not of anger but of complete surrender to Lord Shiva. He was born as Vichara Sharma in the Tamil region of Kongu Nadu, traditionally believed to be near Tiruchengood. From a very young age, he was quiet, calm, and deeply spiritual. While other children played, his heart rested only on Lord Shiva. Vichara Sharma was a simple cowherd boy. Every day, while taking the cows to graze, he would sit by a riverbank, make a small Shiva lingam from sand, and gently pour milk over it. For him, this was not a ritual. This was pure love for God. But his father did not understand this devotion. He believed the milk was meant for livelihood, not for worship. To him, this devotion looked like waste. One day, in anger while the boy was deep in prayer, his father kicked the sand lingam and spilled the milk on the ground. When Vichara Sharma opened his eyes, he did not see his father. He saw disrespect to Lord Shiva. In that intense moment of devotion, he lifted the stick he used to guide the cows. By Lord Shiva's divine will, that simple stick turned into a parachute, an axe. In that state of pure bhakti, he struck his father's leg, and the leg was severed. The act was sudden, but it was driven by faith, not hatred, by devotion, not ego. At that very moment, Lord Shiva appeared. He stopped everything. He healed and restored the father's leg completely. Then Lord Shiva spoke, "From today, I am his father. He who protects my worship is closest to me." From that moment, Vichara Sharma became Chandesha. The name Chandesha means one with fierce devotion, the powerful guardian of Shiva. His fierceness was not violence, it was unshakable faith. Because of his total surrender, Chandesha was made the guardian of Shiva's temple wealth. Even today, in Shiva temples, his murti is placed in the northeast direction. He is shown sitting in deep meditation, holding an axe in his hand. Devotees clap or snap their fingers before his shrine to show their hands are empty and they take nothing that belongs to Shiva. This story does not teach us to hurt parents. It teaches us that true devotion has no ego. Faith must be sincere, and God looks at intent, not status. This is Chandesha Nayanar, the devotee who went beyond attach and became the eternal guardian of Lord Shiva himself. Om Namah Shivaya. What if a child, not even old enough to read or write, became the reason an entire faith was revived? This is not a myth. This is history. Thirugnana Sambandar lived in Tamil Nadu during the 7th century. He was one of the 63 Nayanars, the great Shaivite saints who spread devotion to Lord Shiva through simple songs that common people could understand. What made Sambandar extraordinary was that he was a child saint. When Sambandar was just 3 years old, he went with his father to the temple tank at Sirkali. While his father was bathing, the child began to cry loudly, not calling for his father, but calling for Shiva and Parvati. According to Shaiva tradition, Lord Shiva appeared with goddess Parvati, and Parvati fed the child Jnana Pal, the milk of divine wisdom. From that moment, the child was filled with spiritual knowledge. When his father returned, he noticed milk on the child's lips and asked, "Who gave you this?" The child pointed to the sky and sang his very first hymn, called Todudaya Seviyan. That hymn still exists today and is sung in Shiva temples even now. Before the age of 16, Thirugnana Sambandar composed hundreds of devotional hymns. These hymns later became part of the Thevaram, and today they form the first 3 volumes of the Thirumarai, the sacred canon of Tamil Shaivism. This is textually preserved history, not folklore. As Sambandar traveled across Tamil Nadu, he did not walk alone. He journeyed with Appar, also known as Tirunavukadasar, a senior Shaivite saint who guided him with humility, discipline, and deep temple wisdom. Along with them was Muruga Nayanar, a devoted Shaiva saint born in Thiruvengadu in the Chola region of Tamil Nadu. Muruga Nayanar is remembered for his selfless service, quiet devotion, and unwavering support to Lord Shiva and fellow saints. Later, Sundarar joined the sacred path, forming the 3 great pillars of Shaivite devotion. Together, they sang hymns, debated opposing beliefs, and revived temples across Tamil Nadu, bringing Shaivism back into the hearts of the people. During this time, Sambandar debated Jain monks using knowledge, clarity, and devotion, not violence. He is also believed to have cured the Pandyan king of a severe illness. This event led the king to embrace Shaivism, resulting in a royal resurgence of Shiva worship across the region. At just 16 years of age, during his wedding ceremony, Thirugnatan Sambandar is believed to have merged into Shiva Jyoti, the divine light, symbolizing liberation and eternal grace. His life teaches us one timeless truth: wisdom does not depend on age. It comes from grace, devotion, and purity of heart. Om Namah Shivaya. What if devotion was forbidden, but your duty demanded silence? She was not just a queen. She was one of the 3 women Nayanars, among the 63 Nayanars of Shaivism. Her name was Mangayar Karasiyar Nayanar. Born a Chola princess, she became the queen of the Pandya kingdom. She was married to King Kun Pandyan, a ruler who had turned away from Lord Shiva and embraced Jainism. The royal court followed Jainism. Shiva temples were neglected. Saiva devotees were silenced. But Mangayar Karasiyar did not rebel. She did not argue. She did not abandon her duty as queen or wife. Instead, she chose silence. She worshipped Lord Shiva in secret. She prayed every single day, not for power, not for victory, but for her husband's spiritual awakening and for Shiva's return to Madurai. As a queen, she ruled with dignity. As a wife, she endured with patience. As a devotee, she never wavered. This was not weakness, this was strength under control. Along with the Prime Minister Kulachirayar, a devoted Shaiva himself, she quietly protected the flame of Shaivism inside a court dominated by Jain influence. Then came the turning point. The king fell gravely ill, a painful disease. No cure. The Jain monks failed to heal him. At that moment, Manggayar Karasiyar and Kulachirayar secretly invited the young saint Thirugnana Sambandar to Madurai. Sambandar arrived. He applied sacred ash, vibhuti. He sang hymns in praise of Lord Shiva. And the king was healed. Not by medicine, not by debate, but by grace. The king returned to Shaivism. Madurai returned to Lord Shiva. Temples were restored. Dharma rose again. And Manggayar Karasiyar? She did not celebrate. She did not claim credit, because true devotion does not shout. It does not fight for attention. It waits. It endures. It transforms. Manggayar Karasiyar Nayanar, one of the 3 women Nayanars, among the 63 Nayanars, she changed a kingdom by staying silent. Om Namah Shivaya. What if your talent was so pure that God himself called you inside his temple? Not a king, not a warrior, not even a saint, a musician. This is the story of Tirunilakantha Yalpanar. In the sacred town of Tiru Erikadam Pulayur, where even Lord Muruga worshipped Lord Shiva, a man was born who did not imitate nature. He listened to it, the sound of birds, the rhythm of rivers, the whisper of trees, the silence between notes. He turned creation itself into music on the ancient instrument called the yal. That is why he was called Yalpanar. He never played for fame. He never played for reward. He never played for applause. His music was offered only to Mrityunjaya Shiva, the Lord beyond death. Traveling temple to temple across the Chola lands, he consecrated the very source of sound, Om, the Pranavam, with devotion through music. Music became his worship. When he reached Madurai, he did not enter the temple. He stood outside and played. No drama, no force, only perfect alignment. That night, Shiva appeared in the dreams of the devotees and said, "Bring this musician before me." A bench was placed so his yawl would not touch the cold earth, not for the man, but for the instrument, because it had become sacred. He sang of the cosmic dance, of the destruction of ignorance, of the infinite pillar of light, of grace given instantly to surrender. Shiva listened. Later, Yalpanar followed the child saint Tirugnana Sambandar. He played for him. He served him. He surrendered completely. And one day, they did not die. They merged into Shiva himself. Some people pray, some people sing, but some become the prayer. That was Tirunilakantha Yalpanar. What if God didn't want your obedience, but your honesty? Sundarar was born in Tirunavalur, into a respected Brahmin family. From the outside, his life was flawless. Perfect lineage, perfect future, perfect rituals. Everything tradition promised, he already had. But here's the disruption. Shiva had already claimed him, not metaphorically, not just as a spiritual idea, not symbolically, not only in belief, legally. On Sundarar's wedding day, as mantras echoed and the sacred fire burned, an old ascetic walked in and said, "This man belongs to me." The crowd laughed. Sundarar was furious. The old man produced a palm leaf document, a legal deed. The elders examined it. It was real. The old man smiled and said, "Call me Pithan, the mad one." Then he vanished. That madman was Shiva himself. Sundarar did not bow. He did not beg. He did not surrender. He argued with God. His first song to Shiva was not praise. It was a complaint, and Shiva accepted it. That is when Shiva gave him a name, Nampiarura, my beloved, my trusted one. From then on, Sundarar spoke to Shiva like an equal. He scolded him. He teased him. He demanded help. He questioned divine justice. And every time, Shiva responded. No punishment, no ego, just relationship. Because of this bond, history gave him a rare title, Thojan, the friend of God. Here is the tattva. Shiva does not seek perfect devotees. He seeks real relationships. Fear creates distance. Honesty creates closeness. Sundarar did not worship Shiva correctly. He loved Shiva completely. Would your devotion survive this kind of honesty? He left Shiva. He broke down. And still, Shiva chose him. This is Apparar Tirunavukarasar. Born as Meiporul Nayanar in Tiruvamur, near today's Cuddalore in Tamil Nadu. He was born a Saiva. But later in life, he abandoned Shiva and became a Jain monk, trusting logic and discipline over devotion. Then life collapsed. A severe stomach disease shattered his body. No philosophy cured him. No strict practice saved him. Broken, helpless, He remembered Shiva, not with rituals, not with arguments, but with surrender. He sang from pain, and the disease vanished completely. He returned to Shiva, not as a preacher, but as a servant. He walked from temple to temple, cleaning floors with his own hands, carrying stones, singing hymns in simple Tamil. Shiva renamed him Tirunavukkarazar, the Lord of the Tongue. His Saiva Tattva is clear and uncompromising. Ego binds, service frees. Devotion is action, not identity. You may walk away from God, but if your surrender is real, Shiva never walks away from you. He did not leave his life. He did not give up everything suddenly. He did not perform painful penance, yet he reached God. Muruga Nayanar was born in a Saiva family. He lived in Tirupugallur in Tamil Nadu. He was not a king. He was not a famous teacher. He lived an ordinary life. But his devotion was not ordinary. Every single day before sunrise, he woke up early, took a bath, and walked into gardens and forests. He collected fresh flowers, not for beauty, not for people to see, for Shiva. This daily service is called Pushpakain Karyam, serving God with flowers. No hard penance, no suffering, no demand for miracles. Only one thing, daily service, day after day, year after year. Then something powerful happened. A great saint named Thirugnana Sambandar came to Tirupugallur. Sambandar was very young, but his hymns shook temples and filled the land with devotion. Muruga Nayanar did not look at age. He did not look at fame. He saw divine presence. He welcomed Sambandar. He respected him. He stayed close to him. Later, at Sambandar's wedding, something rare happened. A divine light filled the place. That light was Shiva himself. Sambandar prayed for liberation and merged into Shiva. Muruga Nayanar was standing there. And at that same moment, Shiva also gave liberation to Muruga Nayanar. He did not return. His journey was complete. Moral: you don't need to escape life to reach God. You don't need pain or drama. If you offer your daily life, your small actions, your simple service with devotion, God notices. That is Muruga Nayanar. Quiet devotion. Simple service. Grace at the right moment. What if liberation does not happen after death, but while you are still alive and breathing? What if freedom is not somewhere else, but already within you? One saint dared to say exactly this. His name was Tirumular. Tirumular was not a king, not a warrior, and not a temple priest. Yet his wisdom reshaped the very meaning of yoga and realization. He declared a powerful truth that shocked his time. He said, "This body is not a burden to be escaped. This body is a sacred temple." At a time when many believed that the body was an obstacle to spirituality, Tirumular said the opposite. Without the body, realization is impossible. Without the breath, awareness cannot awaken. Without discipline, truth cannot be realized. This is where his teaching of Shiva Yogam begins. Shiva Yogam is not about reaching God somewhere far away. It is about realizing that the soul and Shiva were never separate. According to Tirumular, all human suffering comes from one root cause: ignorance, forgetting who we truly are. When ignorance disappears, the soul naturally recognizes its oneness with Shiva, just like a wave realizing it is nothing but the ocean. So how does one remove ignorance? Not through blind rituals, not through fear of punishment, not by running away from family or society. Tirumular taught an inner path. First, discipline the body, because it is the instrument of realization. Second, regulate the breath, because breath controls the mind. Third, still the mind, because truth reveals itself only in silence. Through practices like breath control, meditation, mantra, and inner awareness, he taught people to turn inward. When the breath becomes slow and steady, the mind loses its restlessness. When the mind becomes calm, awareness expands. When awareness expands fully, the individual self dissolves into pure consciousness. This state is called samadhi, not unconsciousness, but complete clarity. Tirumular's ultimate goal was Jivan Mukti, liberation while living. But Jivan Mukta does not escape the world. He lives in the world but is no longer trapped by it. Such a person eats, works, speaks, and walks like everyone else, yet remains untouched by fear, ego, desire, or sorrow. This is the bliss Tirunmular spoke of, silent, stable, and unshakable. His message is simple but uncompromising. Yoga is not physical exercise alone. Yoga is not performance or display. Yoga is inner mastery. Change the breath, change the mind, change the awareness, and life itself transforms. This is Tirunmular's inner yoga. This is realization while alive. This is freedom here and now. Om Namah Shivaya. What if the greatest crown was never worn, but bowed to? Kootruva Nayanar was born in Kalundai in what is today Tamil Nadu. He was not an ordinary man. He grew up to become a powerful chieftain and fearless warrior. People feared him in battle. His very name, Kootruva, meant death, but strength was not what defined him. Inside, Kootruva Nayanar was a deep devotee of Lord Shiva. Even though he ruled lands and commanded armies, he believed one simple truth. Anyone who loves Shiva must be respected and protected. He treated Shiva's devotees with humility. He served them with care. He found peace by chanting Shiva's name. For him, serving devotees was greater than ruling kingdoms. One day, Kootruva Nayanar wished to be crowned as a king at Chidambaram, but the temple priests refused. They said only kings from a certain royal family could be crowned. Kootruva Nayanar did not get angry. He did not argue. He did not use his power. Instead, he stood before Lord Nataraja and prayed, "If people cannot crown me, let you be my crown." That night, Lord Shiva appeared in his dream and gently placed his sacred feet on Kootruva's head. That was his true coronation. No ceremony, no royal title, only God's grace. From that day, Kootruva Nayanar ruled knowing that Shiva alone was his true king. His life, remembered in the Periya Purāṇam, teaches us this. Power does not make a person great. Devotion, humility, and service do. When ego bows, grace descends. Om Namah Shivaya. Why did Shiva accept a devotee who fed him raw meat? Yes, you heard that right. No mantras, no temple, no purity rules. He was a hunter. He offered meat, poured water from his own mouth, worshipped Shiva like a friend in the forest. Then, something unimaginable happened. The 𝐒𝐈𝐕𝐀 began to bleed. He didn't chant. He didn't call a priest. He plucked out his own eye to stop Shiva's pain. Before he could take the second, Shiva appeared. Not to punish, not to judge, but to accept him. Because Shiva wasn't looking at ritual. He was looking at devotion without ego. Why would God accept this? The full Kannappa story and the tattva behind it is explained on YouTube. What if God tested not your power, but your attachment to it? Cheraman Perumal Nayanar was born a prince in ancient Kerala, but his heart leaned towards silence, not the throne. Before he ever ruled people, he chose to rule himself. Prayer before command, devotion before authority. When the crown came, he paused, not out of fear, but out of clarity. Only after divine assurance that kingship would not block his path to Shiva did he accept power. And when he ruled without ego. He listened deeply to the poor, to the unseen, even to those without words. Justice was swift. Compassion was policy. Once he bowed before a washerman, seeing sacred ash where others saw dust. A king at the feet of a laborer, because for him, a devotee stood higher than any throne. He spent wealth like it was not his own, because it wasn't. The kingdom belonged to Shiva. He was only a caretaker. Then came the final call. His friend Sundarar was summoned to Kailasa. Cheraman Perumal did not hesitate. He whispered Om Namah Shivaya into his horse's ear, and it flew. A crown released, a kingdom left behind. Because leadership rooted in devotion knows one final truth. Power is held. Grace is earned by letting go. Om Namah Shivaya. What if God tested not your strength, but your intent? Thirukurippu Thondar lived in ancient Kanchipuram, not as a scholar, not as a ruler, not as a warrior, but as a silent servant of Shiva's devotees. He chose a life no one celebrates. He washed the clothes of Shiva Bhaktas every day. No recognition, no ritual rank, no reward. Yet his devotion was precise. He read faces. He sensed unspoken needs. He understood Karippu, the inner intention. For him, service was not an activity. It was worship in execution. One day, Shiva arrived disguised as an old, shivering devotee, wrapped in torn clothes. The man made a single request: wash my clothes and return them before sunset. They are my only protection from the cold. Thondar agreed instantly. No pause, no calculation, no conditions. Then the sky turned hostile. Dark clouds gathered, heavy rain poured. The clothes would not dry. To Thondar, this wasn't weather. This was failure in service to a devotee of Shiva. He did not blame fate. He did not ask God for an exception. He did not look for alternatives. Overcome with grief, he cried out, ready to give his own life for breaking a promise made in devotion. He lifted his head toward the very stone on which he washed the clothes of Shiva's devotees. The same stone that bore dirt in service would now bear his blood in repentance. No escape, no justification, only accountability before Shiva. That moment ended the test. Shiva appeared in his true form and stopped him, because the clothes were never the test. The rain was never the obstacle. The stone was never about washing garments. It was about crushing ego. By cleansing clothes, Thondar had cleansed himself. By fearing failure in service, he proved he had none left. Shiva blessed him with liberation, because where ego ends, grace has nothing left to remove. This story is not about rain. It is not about clothes. It is about service without self. Devotion doesn't announce itself, it operates silently, completely. Om Namah Shivaya. What if God asked for the one thing you can never give? Thondar Nayanar was once called Paranjoti. He was the commander-in-chief of the Chola army, a skilled warrior, a scholar of Sanskrit and Ayurveda, and a man who won great battles, including the conquest of Vatapi, Badami. But after years of war, Paranjoti felt uneasy. Victory no longer felt like success, because true devotion does not take pride in violence. With the king's permission, he gave up his position and his sword. He returned to his village, Tiru, and chose a new life, serving Lord Shiva and Shiva's devotees. He made a simple vow: I will not eat food unless I first feed a devotee of Shiva. Because of his humility and service, people stopped calling him Paranjoti and began calling him Thondar, the small servant. One day, Lord Shiva came to his home disguised as a fierce ascetic called a Vairavar, a Kapalika yogi. Thondar welcomed the guest with respect. But the Vairavar placed a frightening condition. He said he ate only once every 6 months, and only a meal prepared in a very specific way, involving a pure, young Brahmin boy. Thondar and his wife, Tiruvenkatu Nangai, were shocked. Their hearts trembled. But they remembered one truth above all others. A guest is Shiva himself. There was no other child. So with unbearable pain, they decided to offer their own son, not out of cruelty, but out of complete surrender to God. They did not argue with fate. They did not question God. They did not ask for another option. Fear was put aside. Attachment was let go. Ego disappeared. They surrendered their intention, placing Shiva above life, loss, and even themselves. This is the core teaching of the story. God tested surrender, not violence. Then came the final test. The Vairavar said, "Call your son and ask him to come and eat with me." Thondar stepped outside and called his son by name. And suddenly, the child came running toward them, alive, unharmed, smiling. Nothing had happened. The offering was never taken. The sacrifice was never accepted. The test ended at that moment. The Vairavar disappeared. In his place, Lord Shiva appeared with Parvati Mata and Murugan seated on Nandi, blessing the family. Shiva declared that their devotion had no conditions. This story is not about what they did. It is about what they were willing to give up inside. Where ego ends, Shiva reveals himself. Om Namah Shivaya. Before birth decided worth, before entry decided devotion, there lived a man who believed no wall could stop Shiva. This is the story of Nayanar, also known as Tirunilakantha. Born in Aiyadigal into a life society marked as impure, Nayanar was denied temples, rituals, and proximity to God. But devotion doesn't ask permission. He worked as a cattle herdsman, handled leather, lived outside sacred walls. Yet his heart lived only with Shiva. Every day he worshipped from a distance, sang Tamil hymns, offered milk meant for cattle, waited patiently, endlessly, At Tiruppunkur, at the Sivalokanathar temple, he stood outside the shrine. Nandi blocked his view of the Shiva Linga. He did not complain. He did not demand. He prayed. And tradition says Nandi moved aside, because when devotion is real, even stone listens. But his greatest longing was Chidambaram, the sacred space of Lord Nataraja. He reached Chidambaram and stopped. I am not worthy, he believed. So he stayed outside the temple town. Days turned into years, until Shiva intervened. Nataraja appeared in the dreams of the priests. Why is my devotee kept away? Before entering the Chidambaram temple, Nandanar was asked to pass through sacred fire, not as punishment, but as purification. He did not argue. He did not fear. He walked into the fire chanting Om Namah Shivaya. From the flames he emerged transformed. He entered Chidambaram, beheld Nataraja, and merged into Shiva forever. He never broke the system. Shiva transcended it. Moral society decides who may enter. Shiva decides who belongs. Nandanar Nayanar teaches us this eternal truth. Devotion is not validated by birth. Grace does not follow rules, it rewrites them. Before kingdoms counted wealth, there was a land that fed the world. Nourished by the sacred Kaveri, the Chola country flourished, not in gold, but in generosity. In this blessed land stood Tiruvakkur, a town where Vedas filled the air, fire rituals purified the sky, and no cry for help went unanswered. Here lived Sirappuli Nayanar, born of Vaidika Brahmin, bound by discipline, devoted to Shiva by choice. But his devotion followed one rule, clear, unbreakable. A devotee of Shiva is Shiva himself. When devotees arrived, he did not stand tall. He fell at their feet. He welcomed them with gentle words, gave them rest, fed them with love, and offered whatever they wished without hesitation. No status checked, no worth measured. His generosity fell like rain, equal on all. Still, his discipline never faded. Fire rituals 3 times a day, the Panchakshara on his lips. Temple service with steady hands, Shiva's feet fixed in his heart. One day, 999 devotees had already been served, food offered, feet washed, blessings received. As the day faded, a final knock was heard. At the door stood a poor, aged devotee. No signs of greatness, no divine glow. Just a tired seeker asking for service. Sirappuli did not pause. He did not measure effort. He did not change his ways. He served him exactly as he served the others. No extra care, no special offering, only devotion. Then the old devotee blazed like sacred fire. It was Shiva himself. Thus the Lord of Tiruvakkur came to be praised as Ayyaraftil Oruvar, the one among 1,000. Sirappuli Nayanar was blessed, liberated, taken to Shiva's holy feet, because rituals impress people. But devotion that never changes, even when God is unrecognized, moves God himself. Om Namah Shivaya. What kind of devotion refuses wealth, refuses comfort, and even refuses healing? In the fertile Chola kingdom, in the sacred town of Tiruperumangalam, a land that echoed constantly with Shiva's name, was born Eyarkon Kalikama Nayanar, a commander of armies by position, but in spirit a servant of Shiva's servants. Eyarkon believed one uncompromising truth. Serving the devotees of Shiva is the highest worship of Shiva. He gave without counting, food to the hungry devotees, clothes to pilgrims, gold to temples, without name, without pride. At the temple of Lord Neelanakka in Tiruppunkur, he served tirelessly, not seeking blessings, but protecting bhakti itself. For Eyarkon, Shiva was the eternal master, unquestionable, unapproachable, supreme. Then he heard of another devotee, Sundar, a saint who did not beg God, who spoke to Shiva like a friend, so intimate that Shiva himself went as a messenger for him. Eyarkon was shaken. How can the master serve a servant? His love for Shiva burned into anguish. He prayed daily for an answer. Shiva responded, not with words, but with destiny. Eyarkon was struck by sulai, a terrible and unbearable stomach disease. Then came the divine verdict. Only Sundarar can cure you. Eyarkon collapsed in disbelief. Oh Lord, we trusted only you, depended only on you, worshipped only you. And now my life depends on the one you served. He refused the cure. "If accepting this is the price of healing," he said, "then let this body perish." Before Sundara could arrive, Eyarkon took a sword and ended his own life, not from despair, but from conviction. His wife stood firm. She did not cry. She did not collapse. She hid her husband's body. She silenced the household. Why? Because a devotee of Shiva was arriving. When Sundara reached the house, she welcomed him with lamps, flowers, and water, as if nothing had happened. Serving a devotee came before personal grief. Sundara insisted on seeing Eyarkon. The truth was revealed. Seeing the lifeless body, Sundara raised his own blade to end his life. At that very instant, by the mercy of Shiva, Eyarkon was restored to life. Truth struck both hearts. Eyarkon finally understood. Sundara never commanded Shiva. Shiva chose to serve him, out of love. They fell at each other's feet. Devotion met devotion. Ego dissolved. Together they worshipped Shiva at Tiruppunkor. Sundara sang the Devaram and Analan, praising the greatness of Eyarkon. Eyarkon returned to his town, continued serving devotees without pause, and finally attained the feet of Shiva. God does not lose greatness by serving his devotee. The devotee rises by understanding that love. That is Eyarkon Kalikama Nayanar. Can one mistake and one promise shape an entire lifetime? This is not mythology. This is a real story from Tamil history. In the 7th century, in Chidambaram, Tamil Nadu, lived a simple potter. He was married. He worked with clay. He served Shiva devotees. His name was Tirunilakantha Nayanar, one of the 63 Nayanars. He was not a monk. He lived like any common man. One day, he made a serious mistake. He desired another woman outside his marriage. The scriptures do not hide this flaw. They record it honestly. When his wife Ratnasalai came to know, she was deeply hurt. She said only one sentence: "Do not touch me in the name of Tirunilakantha, Shiva." The moment Shiva's name was spoken, the potter stepped back. He did not argue. He did not justify himself. He made a decision. If touching a woman dishonors Shiva's name, I will never touch any woman again, not even my own wife. From that day onward, the couple lived together but followed complete celibacy. They ran the household, served devotees, lived normally. But they never touched. For decades, this discipline remained hidden from the world. To test their truth, Lord Shiva came disguised as a wandering yogi. He stayed in the town and left his clay begging bowl with the potter for safekeeping. Later, Shiva made the bowl disappear. When the yogi returned, he accused the potter of theft. The potter calmly said, "I did not take it." The yogi replied, "Then prove your innocence. Hold your wife's hand and bathe with her in the temple pond." This was the test. If he touched her, his lifelong vow would break. If he refused, he would be seen as guilty. The couple chose truth over image. They entered the pond holding opposite ends of a bamboo stick without touching each other. When the temple priests questioned this, the potter finally revealed their lifelong vow of restraint. At that very moment, the yogi revealed himself. Shiva and Parvati appeared in the sky. As the couple emerged from the pond, their aged bodies became youthful again. Shiva blessed them and said, "You conquered desire. You honored my name. This is true purity. This is the lesson of Tirunilakantha Nayanar. Not outer appearance, not social status. Inner discipline is what reaches God." Not all devotion shines in temples. Some of it burns quietly. Inside homes? In Ilaiyankudi, Tamil Nadu, lived a farmer named 𝐒𝐈𝐕𝐀 Mara Nayanar. Vellalar by birth, farmer by work, devotee of Shiva by choice. He earned wealth from the soil, but his true ritual was different. Welcoming Shiva's devotees, washing their feet, feeding them like family, like God himself. Then came the test. Shiva pulled the plug. Wealth faded. Fields emptied. Prosperity walked out of the house. But charity stayed. Land was sold. Comfort was cut. Service never stopped. One rule remained non-negotiable. No devotee leaves hungry. Not today. Not ever. One night thunder roared. Rain slashed the earth. The house had no food. A stranger knocked at the door. Bhikshandi. Mara did not hesitate. He ran into flooded fields to gather paddy seeds. With no firewood, he broke a beam from his own roof. His wife cooked. Mara gathered greens. Hunger waited. Faith worked. because a guest of Shiva never leaves unfed. When the food was served, the stranger blazed like fire. Shiva revealed himself, with Parvati by his side, blessed, liberated, taken to Kailasa, because wealth can disappear, status can collapse, but devotion that survives poverty moves even God. Om Namah Shivaya. Not all devotion is gentle. Some of it is dangerous, because it refuses compromise. In Varankayyur, during the age of the Cholas, lived a man named Satti Nayanar, not a poet, not a priest, a devotee of Shiva with zero tolerance. He didn't sing bhajans. He didn't debate philosophy. His devotion had one rule. Shiva's name is sacred, never insulted, never negotiated. So he took a vow. If anyone spoke ill of Shiva or his devotees, Satti Nayanar would silence them by cutting out the tongue that committed the offense. Brutal by human logic, unacceptable by social law. But the Periya Purāṇam records something deeper. There was no anger, no ego, no personal hatred, only surrender. In his world, there was no society, no morality chart, no consequence. Only Shiva. This path is called extreme bhakti, where devotion burns so hot that logic melts away. And Shiva noticed. Pleased by this terrifying, unfiltered loyalty, Shiva granted Satti Nayanar moksha, liberation beyond birth and death. Today, he is worshipped across Tamil Nadu, shown holding a knife, not as violence, but as a vow carved into flesh. His Guru Puja is observed on the Ilium star in the month of Aipasi, because some devotion doesn't ask, is this right? It only asks, is Shiva honored? And that faith went beyond logic. Om Namah Shivaya. What if I told you God postponed a king's temple to attend a temple that didn't exist? Not all devotion shines in stone temples. Some of it is built quietly inside the human heart. In Tirunilakantha, Tamil Nadu, lived a poor Brahmin named Pugal Nayanar. No wealth, no land, no power. Only one dream lived within him, to build a temple for Lord Shiva. He watched kings raise towering temples. He watched stone turn sacred, and he looked at his empty hands. But devotion does not wait for money. It chooses faith. Pugal made a decision. If I cannot build a temple outside, I will build one inside. He closed his eyes and began. A foundation laid with faith, walls shaped with discipline, pillars raised with patience, a sanctum formed with pure love, not with stone, not with gold, but with thought, breath, and surrender. Years passed, poverty remained, but the temple grew. He followed every sacred rule, fixed the exact auspicious day, chose the precise holy hour to consecrate the temple in his heart. At the same time, Pallava king Raja Simha prepared a grand ceremony for a magnificent stone temple at Kanchipuram. Same day, same hour. That night, Lord Shiva appeared in the king's dream, not in anger, not in command, but with calm certainty. Postpone your ceremony. Tomorrow I attend my devotee's temple. The king woke in shock. Rushed to Tirunilakantha, searching for towers. Searching for walls? There were none. Only a poor devotee, eyes closed, hands folded, tears flowing in prayer. The king asked, "Where is the temple?" Pugal gently touched his chest. "It is here." The king bowed, because God had already arrived. Pugal completed the consecration. Shiva accepted the temple, not built with stone, but with devotion. Later, a temple rose there called Hridayalishwarar, the Lord who lives in the heart, because wealth can disappear, power can collapse, stone can break, but devotion built within becomes God's home. Om Namah Shivaya. Before power defined kings, before victory defined greatness, there lived a ruler who believed no crown stood above Lord Shiva. This is the story of Pugal Chola Nayanar. Born into the Chola dynasty, Pugal Chola ruled from Tiruchirappalli. He was trained in warfare and governance, but rooted deeply in Saiva Bhakti. He fed the poor, honored Shiva devotees, maintained temples, and ruled with one unbreakable principle: no harm must ever come to a devotee of Shiva. Once, in Karur, a royal elephant snatched flowers from a Shiva devotee. Enraged by this insult to Shiva worship, the devotee Iyarpagai killed the elephant and its guard. When the king arrived, he did not punish the devotee. Instead, he declared, "If my kingdom caused this offense, I alone am responsible." At that very moment, Lord Shiva appeared, revived the dead, and blessed the king for his righteousness. Later in life, after winning a fierce battle, Pugal Chola walked across the battlefield. Among severed heads, he saw one Shiva devotee. He did not justify the war. He did not blame fate. He said, "A king whose rule causes the death of a Shiva Bhakta has no right to live." He crowned his son as king, placed the devotee's head upon his own, chanted Om Namah Shivaya, and walked into sacred fire. He lost a kingdom, but attained Kailasa. Moral power can hide mistakes. Devotion never allows escape. Pugal Chola Nayanar teaches us this timeless truth. True Dharma means owning responsibility, even when the fault is indirect. True leadership is not about holding power, but about knowing when conscience demands you let it go. Om Namah Shivaya. He was born blind. He had no education, no status, no power. Yet Shiva stood for him. Dandi Adigal was born blind in Thiru, one of the holiest Saiva temple towns of Tamil Nadu. From childhood, he never saw the world, but somehow he saw Shiva. He could not read scriptures. He could not see the Liyanga. He did not understand rituals, but his faith was unbreakable. Guided only by a staff, Dandi Adigal chose a life of hard physical service. Every single day, he walked around the Shiva temple and temple tank. Blind, yet determined, he cleared thorny bushes with his hands. He removed dirt and waste. He dug the ground. He leveled the land. He carried heavy baskets of mud and debris. Work that even-sighted men avoided, but he did it blind. Because in his heart there was only one belief. If this place belongs to Shiva, then this body also belongs to Shiva. People watched, at first, in silence. Then came the laughter. "You are blind. Why are you digging? You will kill insects. This work is useless. Stop this foolish act." Mockery turned into cruelty. They snatched his spade. They took away his baskets. They physically stopped him. Still, Dandi Adigal did not fight. He did not argue. He did not curse them. He did not ask for revenge. With tears in his eyes, he said only this: if Shiva wants this service, he himself will reveal the truth. Broken, humiliated, helpless, he surrendered completely to Shiva. That night, everything changed. According to traditional accounts, Shiva appeared in a dream to both Dandi Adigal and the local king. Shiva assured his devotee and ordered justice. The next morning, before the gathered people, a miracle unfolded. Dandi Adigal regained his eyesight. The blind devotee could see. Those who mocked and obstructed him lost their sight. Temporarily, the crowd fell silent. The message was undeniable. Shiva does not judge devotion by knowledge, strength, or ability. Shiva looks only at innocence and sincerity. After this divine moment, Dandi Adigal continued his service, now honored by society for what Shiva had always known. In time, Shiva granted him liberation. His journey ended where it always belonged, at Shiva's feet. Moral: you don't need perfection to reach God. You don't need learning or power. Even your limitations can become sacred offerings when devotion is pure. That is Dandi Adigal Nayanar, blind to the world, clear to Shiva, accepted by grace. He didn't lose everything. He gave it up voluntarily. Born as Vadavur in the 9th century, in Vadavur near Madurai, Tamil Nadu, he was a rare mind, scholar, strategist, administrator, so trusted that the Pandya king of Madurai made him a top minister. Power, wealth, status, secured. Then came the turning point. The Pandya king assigned him the task of procuring war horses for the royal army. On that journey, he stopped at Tirupurunturai. There, he met an ascetic guru, calm, direct, unmistakable. The ascetic revealed one truth: you are not what you think you are. That ascetic was Shiva, and the minister was gone. He was later called Manikavajakar, one whose words are like precious gems because his surrender poured out as divine hymns. No debate, no spectacle, just direct inner realization, as held in Saiva tradition. Vadavuradar spent the entire royal treasury, not on horses, but on devotees, temples, and service. No explanation. No return to court. The king was furious. Shiva intervened. Divine acts followed. The king bowed. This is Saranagati Tattva. When ego ends, grace begins. Not ritual perfection, not moral performance, but total inner surrender. From that surrender came Thiruvachakam. Hymn so intense tradition says, if your heart doesn't melt hearing them, nothing will. Moral: you don't reach God by adding more. You reach Him by dropping everything. That is Mani Kavajakar. Total surrender. No return. Would you ever pray to lose your beauty because it stands between you and God? This is not madness. This is the story of Karaikkal Ammaiyar. She was born as Punithavathi in Karaikkal, a coastal town in present-day Tamil Nadu. A wealthy, respected housewife, married, disciplined, deeply devoted to Lord Shiva. By society's standards, her life was perfect. One day, a hungry Shiva devotee stood at her doorstep asking for food. Without hesitation, Punithavathi served him the only ripe mango kept for her husband, because to her, feeding Shiva's devotee was the same as feeding Shiva himself. Later, when her husband returned and asked for the fruit, she didn't argue. She didn't panic. She closed her eyes and prayed silently. And in that moment, the mango appeared again in her hand. Fresh, untouched, impossible. But instead of faith, this miracle created fear. Her husband believed she was no longer an ordinary woman. Terrified of her spiritual power, he abandoned her and remarried elsewhere. Punithavathi was left alone. But she did not cry out in anger. She did not demand justice. She did not curse fate. She turned inward. She understood something clearly. As long as her body and beauty defined her role in the world, her devotion would always be misunderstood. So she prayed again. "Oh, Lord Shiva, this form binds me to identity, to fear, to expectation. Take it away. Give me a body that exists only for you." Shiva answered her prayer. Her beauty faded. Her body became thin, withered, skeletal, like a living reminder of impermanence. Not a demon, not a ghost. A body stripped of ego meant only for devotion. From that moment, she lived beyond social rules, beyond gender roles, beyond fear. She journeyed toward Mount Kailasa, the eternal abode of Shiva. Out of absolute humility, she walked on her hands, refusing to let her feet touch the sacred ground. When Shiva saw her approach, he did not call her a servant. He did not call her a devotee. He called her Ammayi, mother. In that moment, she transcended the human form itself. She became the earliest Tamil saint to sing of Shiva's cosmic dance, celebrating him as Nataraja in the cremation grounds. Where ego ends and truth remains, her body faded into history. Her name became eternal. Karaikkal Ammaiyar did not reject the world. She outgrew it. Because true surrender is not leaving life behind. True surrender is leaving the ego behind. Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring spiritual stories. Har Har Mahadev.